you can get in a great workout with just a barbell, a few stall mats, and some determination. Let me show you how. Now, while the Steinborn squat you just saw is an awesome specialty lift, it's not one that I'd recommend as a regular part of your training routine, just due to the fact that it's quite complex to perform and you'd be far better off with a different kind of squat. The best squat you can do without a power rack is the Zercher Squat. With the barbell in front of you, start deadlifting the bar, but stop just once you're past the knees. Then rest the bar on your quads and get the bar deep into your elbow pits, as deep as you possibly can. While keeping your arms up against your chest, start squatting the weight up and squat for however many reps you want to perform. Now, if you have bumper plates, you can either just drop the bar entirely after your set, otherwise reverse the starting steps to gently put the bar down again. The great thing about the Zercher Squat is the progression potential is really good. You can go very heavy on these if needed, and they sort of mimic a front squat because the bar is in front of you, meaning that they target your quads a lot more than a regular back squat does. The form is also simple and easy to learn, so really the biggest downside to these is that you have to get used to them, because it might hurt a little bit if you have a lot of weight in your elbow pits. You can definitely get used to this over time, but if it's something that's bothering you a lot, I would suggest wearing either a long sleeve shirt or wearing some elbow sleeves. This can definitely alleviate a lot of the pain. No power rack means no bench pressing. Now here, your best direct replacement will be a floor press. On this old school strength training exercise, you don't get quite the same range of motion, but what you do get instead is a dead stop at the bottom. This means that you can't rely on the stretch reflex as much, and so for a lot of people it's actually harder than a normal bench press, despite not maybe growing your chest as much. My personal experience with it is quite good actually. I had it as my primary chest exercise for around 6 months or so, my very first 6 months of lifting. And the very first time I did a proper bench press, I was able to hit 242 pounds. No issues at all. Now 242 pounds was the same PI I had on the floor press at the time. So for me, those were equal. To perform this lift, load the barbell and place it onto a few stall mats so you can comfortably scoot under the bar. With your elbows pushed into the floor, hip thrust the barbell into your starting position and start pressing from here. After your set is done, you can use your hips to gently lower the barbell down again. You can also go quite heavy on this exercise. You can do 1 rep maxes with it as well, but definitely do be careful. If you do have the opportunity to sprinkle in some different chest exercises now and then, I would definitely recommend that. So if you have some parallels, definitely do dips. If you can do them weighted, even better. Those are amazing chest exercises. Normally the floor press should only be a supplemental exercises. But if you don't have anything else, work with what you've got. If you don't have access to either a pull-up bar or a lat pull-down machine, your only choice for building your back is rows or deadlifts or something similar to that. So for pure back work, I would definitely recommend rows. You can do either bend over rows, Yates rows, deficit bend over rows. You can do pendlay rows. Just experiment with different angles for sure. Now, despite what you might typically hear, I wouldn't actually worry about only being able to do rows. If that's what you have to work with, then go ahead. And this is purely anecdotal, so definitely take it with a grain of salt. But for quite a long time, I could only work out with rows as well. And despite this, I have a picture from back in January and a different picture from a few weeks ago. And my back, despite weighing less, has grown in width, which is quite contrary to what you typically hear. Shoulders are quite hard to hit without a power rack. You can do some kind of upright row. I've also seen people do front barbell raises, which feels really awkward for me. So I did not want to use those as my primary shoulder exercise. So what I've done instead is do a seated overhead press. This is a bit awkward to get into because you're pulling the bar from quite low and you have to kind of jerk it up. And doing this seated means that you can't use a lot of weight for it. I know it might look sort of like a C press, but if your legs aren't straight, it feels like a completely different exercise. And I personally couldn't get into a C press comfortably. To get the weight into your starting position, you can use stall mats to prop the weight up a few inches. From here you can load the barbell and explosively pull on the bar to get it up above your shoulders and press from there. It's definitely not perfect, so you have to do higher reps here instead of going heavy. But with the hypertrophic range falling between 4 and 35 reps, you should be fine for a good while. Definitely do be careful with this exercise though, and if you can go outside, I would recommend doing this instead and perform this standard overhead press. When it was snoring outside, I preferred to rely on this exercise as I could perform it indoors, which is the reason for the seated version here. One of my favorite tricep exercises is the barbell tricep floor extension. It feels like sort of like a skull crusher but with a dead stop at the end, and it feels like you can really grind out the reps, and you can use quite a lot of weight on it as well. The first few times I performed this exercise, my triceps were completely trashed the very next day. And the biggest drawback to this exercise, I think, is the range of motion. But as you might have guessed, you can prop yourself up on a few stall mats and increase the range of motion that way. Load up the barbell and lie down in front of it and position yourself as if you were to do a skull crusher. Grab hold of the bar and extend your arms from there as if you were doing a tricep pushdown. Now lower the weight and do this for reps. Thanks for watching. I hope this gave you a few ideas as to how you can work out with just a barbell and a few stall mats. Maybe you learned about some new exercises. Maybe you already knew all of the things but didn't really think about the stall mats. Either way, thanks for watching. Have a good day.